Today's video is a stock market video, and this one's very important because it's regarding the upcoming Federal Reserve meeting. We're going to be discussing what you can expect in the stock market as a result of the January CPI inflation report being the disaster that it was, the January jobs report that came in hotter than expected, and the upcoming Federal Reserve meeting on March 22nd. So I'm going to connect the dots for you because they're all connected, they're all related. So I'm going to tell you how this all ties together. So first I want to get on the same page. So long story short, the Federal Reserve, they printed trillions of dollars. This caused the high rate of inflation that we have today. Now they're trying to clean up their mess. They're raising interest rates in order to slow down demand. So for example, if you want to buy a home, most people are going to get a mortgage, and now it's going to cost you more because obviously the interest rates are higher. So with less people buying homes, prices are going to stop going up so fast. It's going to be the same story if you want to buy a car. Higher interest rates on an auto loan will reduce demand. It's going to be the same story with business loans. So with higher interest rates, businesses are less motivated to borrow money, to expand, to hire, to buy equipment. So less demand means less inflation. However, it also means that it's risking that it pushes the economy into a recession. So let me give you a status update in this balancing act between fighting inflation and us going into recession. So of course, this is going to affect the stock market. This is going to affect everything. This is going to affect the bond market, the cryptocurrency market, the housing markets. But in today's video, we're focusing on the stock markets. I can make a separate video. I will make a separate video on cryptos and also the housing markets. So here are the dots, and let me connect them for you. The January CPI inflation report, it came in at 6.4%. That is awful because that shows that the rate of inflation, it's no longer falling rapidly. Inflation was at 6.5% in December. It came down to 6.4% in January. So this is a huge problem. Now let's take a look at the labor markets. Let's take a look at the January jobs report. So this one was wild. If you know anything about statistics, then this one was beyond wild. It was 8 standard deviations above and beyond. So Wall Street estimates were jobs added of 187,000. The number came in at 517,000. So this was crazy. Unemployment, it fell even further to 3.4%. This is the lowest level since 1969. Now let's connect the dots. When it comes to fighting inflation, the Federal Reserve is now focusing on services, and that is remaining stubborn at 8%. So how is inflation in services going to come down when you have the economy adding 517,000 jobs a month, unemployment's at 3.4%? A tight labor market creates wage inflation. So we saw goods inflation come down substantially over the past few months. Now the Fed, they need to bring down services inflation, and that is not coming down. And this is important because obviously we live in a service-based economy. Now let's talk interest rates. The Federal Reserve has raised their interest rate to a range of 4.5% to 4.75%. The Federal Reserve will raise interest rates by another 0.25% in March, and then they're going to raise it again, probably another 0.25% in May. That would get us to a Fed funds rate of 5.25%, and that would be on the top end. Is that going to be high enough? Is that going to be restrictive enough to bring down inflation on the trajectory to 2%? I'll answer the question with this. Okay, so that's the current game plan. 2 more interest rate increases, 0.25, 0.25, get us to 5.25%. Is that going to be enough? Well, from my perspective, you still have a very tight labor market. And then when you take a look at the CPI inflation report for January, it barely came down. 6.5% to 6.4%. Month over month, it actually went up. So from my perspective, connecting the dots, what does this all mean? It means that one of 2 things will need to happen, or could be both. It means that once the Federal Reserve raises interest rates to 5.25%, they're going to have to hold it there for a much longer amount of time, a greater duration. So we're talking a very long time, like no Fed pivot until deep into 2024. or it means that the Federal Reserve will have to raise interest rates higher than 5.25%. Obviously, that would be devastating for the stock market. And you know what? I think that the stock market is slowly coming to this realization that that is what needs to happen. So let me tell you this, most investors are still in denial. But once people accept this reality, once they get a reality check, the stock market is going to fall hard. So I find it very irrational that the stock market, it actually celebrated and it shot up yesterday. It shot up pre-market, it shot up intraday, upon the terrible inflation reports. So the stock market celebrated that inflation is coming down more slowly than expected. Somehow this is good news. The stock market was happy that interest rates will need to go higher and stay high for longer. Somehow this is a good thing. So the stock market is irrational. What can I say? But I'm not going to fight against irrationality. But this can only last for so long. So I'm telling you this explicitly. This is your warning. This is your wake-up call to make adjustments to your portfolio if you're not positioned properly, so you don't get screwed over when we see a lot of red in the markets. And it's going to happen very soon if it has not started already. I'm talking about the death of this bear market rally. All right, so let me give you the stats. Before this inflation report, the market was expecting that the Federal Reserve would stop raising interest rates at 5%. That's on the high end of the range, 4.75% to 5%, so 5%. After this report, the market expectation is that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates to 5.25%. This is how bad the January inflation report was. According to the CME Fed Watch tool, here are the current odds. So these are based on the Fed funds futures, which is what the traders use to place their bets on the Fed's policy rate. So there's a 74% chance that the Federal Reserve raises interest rates to 5.25%. That would be another 0.25% in March and then another 0.25% in May. And now, there's a 48% chance that the Fed raises another 0.25% in June, and that would get us to 5.5%. So last month, it was unthinkable of the Fed raising their interest rate to 5.5%. The market was expecting that the Fed would stop at 5.0%. So now, 5.5%, that is on the table, and it is not far-fetched, 48% chance. So here's what's going to happen. The Federal Reserve will raise interest rates on March 22nd. Before that happens, we're going to get the February inflation reports on March 14th. If the February inflation report, if that looks similar to January, if it looks flat, if inflation is having a hard time coming down, then the Federal Reserve, they're going to be in deep trouble on March 22nd. So just think about it. What is the Federal Reserve going to do? Are they going to really raise interest rates by 0.5%? In my opinion, they can't do that. They can't go from 0.75 to 0.5 to 0.25 and then just snap it back up to 0.5. Unless they want to crash the stock market and trigger the circuit breakers. So like I said yesterday, it was really foolish and comical of Jerome Powell to come out with all his confidence and with his dovishness in his last FOMC meeting. So I said that inflation would get sticky in the 5% range. The Federal Reserve is having trouble bringing it down to 6%. So the next FOMC meeting, there should be a lot of fireworks. It should be quite the show. So here's what Jerome Powell said before this inflation report. Powell said, and I quote, "We're going to react to the data. So if we continue to get, for example, strong labor market reports or higher inflation reports, it may well be the case that we have to do more and raise interest rates more than we have priced in." So did you hear that clearly? Those two examples that he gave, it just happened. 517,000 jobs added in January and a higher than expected inflation reports. So we have some time until the next FOMC meeting on March 22nd. But again, I don't see how they can go back to raising interest rates to 0.5% increments. I think that they made a mistake of slowing it down. They did it too prematurely, slowing it down to 0.25% at their last meeting. They should have just stuck with 0.5%. Because now they've basically shot themselves in the foot. So at the meeting in March, they're also going to give an update on terminal interest rates. This is what the peak interest rate will need to be at. They previously said that that has to be at 5.25%. If we get an unimpressive February inflation reading, then you can expect them to raise that from 5.25% to 5.5%. And if they raise by 0.25% increments, then it's going to take 3 more meetings for us to get there. Now, if you haven't connected the dots, this is all bad news. So if the media sucked you into believing that the bull market has started, then you're going to learn the hard way that this was a bear market rally and it's now fizzling away. And the little mini party that we just had, it's over. We haven't bottomed out yet. So in today's video, we focus on the inflation reports and also the upcoming FOMC meeting. I'm going to follow up on this video regarding the other items that affect the stock market, particularly US corporate profits and also US retail sales. So please look forward to that because this video, it's gotten long enough already. Please subscribe. I thank you for all the support and wish you a very nice day. Please take care.